Okay, now we're going to talk about systems of government. We've talked about formations of government, right? What the logistical form the government will take, whether it's unitary or federation or a confederation. Now I want to talk about a system of government. That is to say, how the people are actually being governed over. And as you can see by all the stuff up here, there's quite a few. I want to go over them all at the same time, and if you get confused, you can go back and you can just look at them over and over and over. That way you get them right. But I don't want to have several different videos of each one because the videos will be short and this will be a little bit easier, I think. The first one I want to talk about is democracy. And as you can see, this is a form of government where the people are in charge of the government. The citizens themselves. These people, we are going to rule over ourselves. Does that make sense? Principal Thornton, do you have a question?
Are there different types of democracy though?
Excellent question. I can see why you're principal. There are two different types of democracies. The first one is a direct democracy. In a direct democracy, every single citizen votes on everything. Every single citizen debates everything. Every single citizen has the same amount of authority and discretion as all the other citizens. Okay? So a direct democracy, it's really good for small populations, but it's not really efficient for a large population. In America, we can't have 300 million people debating on every single issue. Alright, it's not really feasible. So far, are there any questions? Are there questions?
What are some examples?
What are some examples? Excellent question. Some examples are like town hall meetings. In the north, for instance, there's little town hall meetings that small townships will have where everyone gets to vote. If you've seen Hoosiers, they have that in small towns, right? So town hall meetings are something we have in America, and it's actually we've had for hundreds of years, and are an example of direct democracy. The other type of democracy is a representative democracy, sometimes called a republic, where we vote for people to represent us. We vote for people in Congress in D.C., or we vote for our state representatives, or we vote for the mayor. We vote for people to run our government for us. So we are electing them, and we are in control, but they are doing the actual governing because we have jobs. We have teaching jobs and principalship jobs, and we go to school, and we are truck drivers and garbage collectors and doctors and lawyers, and then we elect people to run our government for us. Okay? Are there any questions about representative democracy?
What are some examples?
Thank you. Some examples would be the United States, right? We are a representative democracy. In fact, most democracies around the world are representative democracies. The next one I want to talk about is a monarchy. This is a form of government where a king or queen or a ruling family controls the entire government. It's passed down from generation to generation. For instance, countries that the son is king and then he dies and his son becomes king, it's generational, right? Now this can be authoritarian because there are some monarchies that are horrible and authoritarian, almost like dictatorships. And there are some that are constitutional monarchies and are pretty much having to go along with democracy. Are there any questions so far?
What are some examples?
Some examples would be, actually a lot of Western European nations, like England is a constitutional monarchy, Portugal is, Spain is. A lot of these monarchies are more about sort of tradition anymore, but there definitely are monarchies, and it's passed down from generation to generation. Okay. The next one I want to talk about real quickly is dictatorship. This is a form of government. It's an extreme form of government where usually one person is in total control of the government. Absolute and total control. Usually this person takes control by force, and it's brutal. And whatever this person says is law. There are no constitutions the guy has to follow, the one has to follow. It is absolute. Whatever this guy says goes. And that's it. Okay? So that is a dictatorship.
Now, wasn't Adolf Hitler a dictator?
Adolf Hitler was a dictator, or a dictator. But there are two different types of dictatorships, two different types of authoritarian dictatorships. The first one, and you're right, he was a fascist dictator. Fascism is a dictatorship where in fascism, the whole purpose is to make make the government stronger, to make the country stronger. Everything is surrounded around the power of the country. So Mr. Dorton is right, being a former history teacher and now a glorious principal. Nazi Germany is an example of an authoritarian fascist dictatorship, and this would be an ultra-conservative style of dictatorship. An ultra-liberal style of dictatorship would be like a communist dictatorship, where the government itself forces people to be more equal, controls wages, controls prices, controls output, and the dictatorship is there to make everyone equal. And in both dictatorships, people lose power. Where in democracy, we are empowered. Okay, the last two, one is an oligarchy. An oligarchy is a form of dictatorship, usually dictatorship, where it's a small elite group of people who are controlling the government. Not necessarily one person, but a few people. It could be, 2 or 3, or it could be up to a few hundred, right? But where a small amount of people control a government, and the rest of the people are left out. And then the last type would be a theocracy. A theocracy is usually a type of dictatorship, although not necessarily. But a type of government where a religious figure, or even sometimes someone's considered above humanity, or almost semi-deity almost in some types of countries, controls the government. And the government usually makes everyone in that country have to be of that religion. Okay? So citizens have to follow the rule of that religion. Are there any questions about a theocracy?
What are some examples?
That's a good question. A couple examples. An Islamic theocracy might be like Iran. Iran, you have to be a Muslim if you live in Iran. It's the law. You have to be a Muslim. Now, it is, on some level, democratic. People vote for the president, but it's also controlled by a supreme ruling council of religious clerics. Another example, a Christian example would be, or a Catholic example would be in Vatican City. Vatican City is, the head of Vatican City is the Pope, who the Catholic Pope, he's head of the Catholic Church, and is ruled by the Pope, and his cardinals are essentially the people who help run his government. And Vatican City, if you've ever been there, it's a few square blocks inside Rome, but everyone who is there is Catholic, right? If you live there, you're either a priest, which you can be, the Pope is a priest, cardinals are priests, bishops are priests, or you are, I think some nuns live there, but obviously they're Catholic. So if you live there, you're Catholic, all right? If you live in Iran, if you're not Muslim, then you better not tell anybody that you're Muslim, because it's against the law. So those are examples of theocracy. So you have democracies where people have control. You have dictatorships where a single person has control, and an absolutarian monarchy, a person has control. You have an oligarchy where a few people have control, and you have a theocracy where a religious group or person is in control. So those are systems of government that fit within the formations of government that we've already talked about.